Harp's Chapter 1. A Meeting of Minds. The air was thick with the hum of machinery in the subterranean lab, a mechanical heart in the chest of the Quantum Divide Research Center. Beams of fluorescent light glowed against the stainless steel surfaces, illuminating the organized chaos of wires and algorithms. The lab embodied the cutting edge of scientific inquiry, yet human voices remained its most palpable element. Dr. Elena Moore stood at a glossy workstation, her fingers tapping a rhythmic pattern on a holographic keyboard. Her auburn hair, tied into a precise knot, seemed to mirror her focused demeanor. Across the table, Dr. Amir Patel loomed, his arms folded tightly over his chest, the furrow of his brow betraying an intensity born of reasoned practicality. "Elena, we have to consider the ramifications beyond the theoretical scope. Traversing the quantum divide isn't just a matter of possibility, it's a matter of consequence." Amir began, his voice a steady bass note cutting through the whirring backdrop. Elena glanced up, her eyes dancing with a spark of insatiable curiosity. "Consequences are part of progress, Amir. Without risk, we'd still be rooted in the past. Surely you can see the potential for knowledge, mapping the untapped terrain." He shook his head, a wry smile softening his stern features. "It's not that simple. There are political megaphone concerns, geopolitical ones we have to weigh. The Consortium's interest in this project isn't purely scientific, and you know it. I know you're worried about politics, but this isn't just about the Consortium. This is about what we can accomplish as scientists, Amir. It's our responsibility to explore, to push the boundaries," Elena countered, her tone edged with passionate fervor. Amir stepped closer, his voice lowering conspiratorially. "And when does exploration become exploitation? Who determines when we've crossed that line? Today, it's whispers, but tomorrow, they might be giving orders we can't refuse." A flicker of doubt tested the edges of Elena's resolve, but she brushed it aside with practiced dedication. "We cannot be paralyzed by the what-ifs. Progress, true progress, demands we act, not just debate." As their conversation continued in an ebb and flow of fervent idealism and cautious realism, they were oblivious to the subtle presence that lingered just out of sight. Floating digital logs captured snatches of their exchanges, evidence of the shadowy interest from the Consortium, a name whispered more urgently in corners than spoken aloud. "Do you hear yourself, Elena? What about the ethical debates that have plagued nearly every scientific leap? Aren't those debates warnings, posts marking where we must tread carefully?" Amir's tone was tempered with patient reason, aware of the thin boundary between caution and cowardice. "Debate is a necessary part of our journey," Elena conceded, but remained steadfast, and so is daring to leap forward. "We walk a path forged equally by light and shadow, Amir." A silence fell between them, one filled with the static buzz of machinery and the unvoiced anticipation of what lay ahead. Despite the uncertainties, a thread of mutual respect bound them, even as their paths diverged in intention, if not purpose. Their eyes locked, an unspoken agreement shimmering within the tension. "We'll have to watch each other's backs," Amir murmured finally, breaking the silence with an air of camaraderie. "That we will," Elena affirmed, a warm persistence in her smile. "The shadows won't know what hit them." As their discussion drew to a tentative close, the lab settled into an almost contemplative silence, the promise of progress and the specter of oversight entwined as intimately as the cables snaking across the floor. Yet in the subtle hum of technology and human aspiration, something else lingered, a preamble to the debates and decisions that would follow, with the Consortium waiting silently, ready to steer the course of discovery. Chapter 2. Whispers in the Pub. The clinking of glasses and the murmur of hushed conversations created a cozy symphony in the dim glow of the Tabard Inn, a quaint pub nestled just a stone's throw from the high-tech corridors of the Quantum Divide Research Center. The rich scent of ale and the low hum of jazz music filled the room, offering Dr. Elena Moore and Dr. Amir Patel a brief respite from their rigorous routines and scientific debates. Seated at a corner booth, they blended into the evening's tapestry of ordinary patrons discussing anything but quantum theory. "Elena," Amir began, lifting his pint glass and studying the amber liquid within. "Why do I get the feeling that lurking on the horizon, there's more than just scientific achievement at stake with our project?" Elena leaned back, her own glass cradled gently in her hands. Her expression was thoughtful, the environment encouraging a more relaxed exchange. I think you're right, Amir. But tonight, let's leave the politics at the door, at least for the first round. She took a sip, allowing the conversation to flow naturally. However, the discourse, at its heart, remained tethered to the cerebral challenges they faced. Do you ever wonder, she mused, if perhaps the work we're doing is too big for us? What if it spirals beyond what we can control? Amir chuckled softly, eyebrow arched in good-natured irony. Funny, coming from the woman who never sees an experiment she's not determined to conquer, or a mountain she's not willing to climb. There's a difference between ambition and recklessness, Elena replied, her smile faint but genuine. I want to believe we're on the right side of history, but with all the pressure from the Consortium, it's hard to keep our work untouched by external motives. He nodded, the atmosphere of the pub a welcome cushion for introspection. And it doesn't help that we can't outright dismiss their influence. Even as we push forward scientifically, it feels like we're weaving between shadows. Elena sighed, casting her gaze towards the window, where the city lights reflected the paradox of their mission, a beacon of progress shrouded in clandestine intentions. Sometimes I wonder if what we're seeing is the murmur of something larger, she admitted. Perhaps we're just not seeing the whole picture. The Consortium is like that, isn't it? Amir speculated, playing with the edge of his napkin. Silent yet pervasive in its reach, threading through our lives, science, everything. Their thoughts mingled in silence for a moment, each aware of the wider implications that came with every probe into the unknown. The slight tension between scientific immortality and moral responsibility hung in the air like smoke from the nearby fireplace. Are we ready, Elena? Amir's question broke the silence, his gaze steady and probing. To see this through, even if it means having to fight for our integrity at every turn? Elena met his eyes, the light flickering warmly between them. As long as we keep our goals and ethics aligned, we should be fine. We've come this far with open minds and committed hearts. She reached across, clinking her glass against his. To our resolve, Amir. May it match the heights of our ambition. To our resolve, Amir echoed, a note of steely determination in his voice. And to keeping those shadows in check. The night wore on, the conversations dipping into lighter topics, interspersed with more profound debates about potential futures and inevitable unknowns. Despite the weight of their work, there was comfort in having someone to share the burden, a comrade to challenge and support in equal measure. As they exited the pub, the air crisp against their cheeks, Elena turned to Amir. I guess we should enjoy these nights while we can. Somehow I get the feeling we'll need them to keep our sanity intact. Amir nodded, his silhouette framed by the halo of streetlights. Whatever comes, we'll face it together. He winked, a playful reassurance. Let's not become one of the stories we'll tell skeptically in a decade. Elena smiled, their camaraderie solidified beneath the fading light. Together they walked into the night, shadows at their backs, ever aware of the whispers swirling around them, whispers of expectation, apprehension, and the enigmatic Consortium watching from the fringes. Chapter 3. Crossroads in the Boardroom. The boardroom high above New London's sprawling skyline gleamed with authority, the polished wood table reflecting the uneasy lines of those seated around it. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the city, a mosaic of ambition and unrest, much like the discussions that were about to unfold within these walls. Dr. Elena Moore adjusted her blazer, a facade of confidence masking the tension knotting her stomach. Next to her, Dr. Amir Patel glanced sideways, his eyes searching hers for the assurance they had promised each other at the pub the previous night. The corporate executives, representatives of the Consortium, sat opposite like ravenous vultures, their suits crisp, their smiles polished but brittle. The head of the table, Maxwell Sunderland, cleared his throat, his voice cutting through the silent expectancy. Dr. Moore! Dr. Patel, he began, each word meticulously pronounced. Your project's potential is vast, yet we've endured delay after delay. The board requires assurances that our investments will yield results, and soon. Elena exchanged a quick glance with Amir before replying, her voice steady but firm. Mr. Sunderland, scientific progress isn't measured by quarterly reports. Our work with the quantum divide is unprecedented. It's critical we prioritize safety and precision over haste. Sunderland leaned forward, fingers steepling in a gesture reminiscent of a hunter waiting to strike. We understand the nature of exploration, Dr. Moore. However, you're operating within a fiscal framework that demands accountability. Our stakeholders require not just promises, but tangible outcomes. Amir interjected, his voice calm, yet unwavering. And those outcomes mustn't be at the expense of integrity. We must proceed with caution, not just for the Consortium's benefit, but to ensure the lasting impact of our discoveries. A woman to Sunderland's right piped up, her tone laced with a modicum of skepticism. Surely, Dr. Patel, you're aware of the pressures from competing nations on this frontier. If we drag our feet, we risk losing ground, a loss that's potentially catastrophic on a geopolitical scale. The real catastrophe, Elena countered, would be rushing into the unknown without understanding the implications. Science is not a race to be won, but a journey to be undertaken carefully. The room buzzed momentarily with the underlying tension of power dynamics, each person absorbed in their thoughts. Sunderland broke the silence, his voice adopting a conciliatory tone. We aren't advocating for reckless behavior, Dr. Moore, just competitive prudence. Amir tilted his head, weighing his response. Competitive prudence without foresight is mere folly. Our work has the power to reshape realities, quite literally. Shouldn't that warrant meticulous care? Sunderland leaned back, a thin smile dancing across his lips. Of course, if you and your team can assure us that the timeline is realistic and both scientifically and financially beneficial, we're willing to accommodate these delays. Elena nodded slowly, the weight of the promise pressing on her shoulders. We can assure you of our dedication to delivering viable results, Mr. Sunderland, but we need the autonomy to dictate the pace based on scientific merit, not just financial incentive. As the discussion continued, the sparring persisted in a cyclical pattern of concession and insistence. The executives hammered incessantly, while Elena and Amir wielded their expertise to deflect unrealistic demands. Eventually, the meeting drew to a reluctant close, the executives retreating, unsatisfied but persuaded enough to grant a grace period, albeit begrudgingly. As Sunderland departed, he issued a parting shot, veiled as advice. Remember, Dr. Moore, Dr. Patel, sometimes the success of a project is measured not just by what it achieves, but by what it prevents. We'll be watching closely. A charged silence followed his exit, the two scientists sharing the space with unspoken relief, the tension momentarily diverted. Elena released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. They see it as a game of leverage, she mused, her voice layered with concern. We always knew they would, Amir replied, rubbing a tired hand over his face. But we held our ground. That's what counts. True, Elena acknowledged, her resolve resurfacing despite the obstacles. We'll keep fighting, Amir, until the very end. He tapped her shoulder affectionately, a familiar camaraderie reignited in the aftermath of their shared battle. That we will, Elena. The stakes are high, but as long as we're in this together, they'll never outweigh our commitment. As they left the boardroom, stepping back into the world of light and shadow, the looming presence of the Consortium haunted their steps, but failed to overshadow their partnership, a formidable counterbalance to any force seeking to manipulate their purpose. They'll realize, Elena said quietly as they rode the elevator down, a sense of calm determination threading her words, that some bridges once crossed cannot be unmade. Amir nodded, a wry smile playing at his lips. And we will make sure we're standing on the right side when that time comes. Their words, a binding promise anchored in mutual respect and an unyielding pursuit of knowledge, resonated as they descended into the heart of New London, where dreams of discovery edged precariously between the light of ambition and the darkness of uncertainty. Chapter 4. The Catalyst of Change. The hum of the lab once more wrapped its familiar embrace around Dr. Elena Moore and Dr. Amir Patel. They stood amid a symphony of blinking monitors and the constant whisper of cooling fans keeping their ethereal secrets from overheating. Yet, as they delved into a fresh batch of data, the presence of a third figure completed the triad pivotal to their venture. Tim Harrington, a precision-driven mathematician, manipulated the data with nimble fingers, his eyes darting along streams of numbers that made up the backbone of their research. Elena, your hypothesis on stabilizing the frequency is showing some promise, he noted, turning to her with a rare spark of excitement in his otherwise stoic demeanor. Elena responded with a nod, her interest piqued. You're saying the calculations are holding up? What about the interference patterns? Yes, they're reducing within predicted margins. It's as Amir said, your equation tames the chaos, at least statistically, Tim replied, his voice a calculated rhythm, blending perfectly with the digital pulse around them. Amir couldn't hide his satisfaction. We're not here to boast, but that's impressive, Elena. If Tim's numbers are right, we might just see some actual progress, something those corporate hawks won't ignore. Before Elena could respond, Windy Jean swept into the room, her buoyant energy an antidote to the persistent grind of technical rigor. She was a visionary biophysicist, with an unflagging zeal for surpassing boundaries, often the light-hearted counterbalance in their pragmatic world. What's this about numbers and progress? Her eyes gleamed with curiosity as she joined them. Hopefully something exciting enough to drag us out of our daily drudges? Elena laughed, a bright sound peeking through the otherwise serious landscape. Tim's calculated that the frequency interference can stabilize with the tweaks we made. It's a step closer to getting tangible results. Finally, some hopeful news, Windy Jean chimed, her tone a playful mockery of the boardroom's ever-pressing shadows. I've been telling everyone that once we strike the right chord, they'll all listen. Tim, analytical as he was, nodded. If we proceed carefully, perhaps we can demonstrate a small-scale trial. It's the kind of leverage we need to keep the Consortium at bay. Amir inserted himself into the burgeoning optimism, a hint of caution remaining. We shouldn't get ahead of ourselves. This is just one calculation, one piece of the puzzle. We have to remember the magnitude of what's at stake. Elena understood his concern, acknowledging it with a nod. You're right, Amir. But we're scientists. Using our curiosity is how we figure out what's next, even when the stakes are high. Windy Jean turned to Amir, a mischievous twinkle in her eye. Come on, Amir. Even you have to admit, being optimistic once in a while doesn't hurt, especially when it's about unlocking the secrets of another realm. He chuckled, conceding the point. All right, I admit. It's a good feeling, to be inching forward instead of at a standstill. As the conversation continued, the synergy between them fueled a shared sense of purpose. The tension of the boardroom receded into the distance, overtaken by their combined excitement at these early signs of potential. It was Tim who brought the discussion back to its core. Intrigue aside, we should consider further ethical implications, shouldn't we? If we stabilize the quantum divide, what happens next? We cross it, Windy Jean suggested, her voice filled with bold confidence. But we do it ethically, as scientists, thinking of all the ways we can contribute positively to our world. Elena smiled at Windy Jean, admiration shining through. There will always be risks, but you're right. Proceeding with intent and forethought, that could redefine everything. Amir cast a solemn glance around the room. We'll have to keep our eyes out for the shadows of exploitation. The Consortium will push, and we need to ensure we don't become pawns in their game. Tim interjected, which means we protect this research and its future applications fiercely. It also means keeping our intentions aligned, Windy Jean added. The integrity of our project depends on all of us staying true to this mission. Their collective resolve, burnished by debate and camaraderie, marked a pivotal moment. It was a catalyst that breathed life into their scientific exploration, a shared vision that transcended the limitations of data and conjecture. But just as the excitement mounted, a flickering light on one console drew their attention, a reminder of the ever-looming shadow of the Consortium. Guess they're watching already, Amir noted, his voice a mix of apprehension and determination. Elena stepped forward, placing a firm hand on Amir's shoulder. Let them watch. We'll make sure that when they see it's our narrative they're following. Their laughter rippled softly between them. A renewed bond formed through discourse and discovery. Though the road ahead remained fraught with uncertainty, there was solace in knowing they faced it together, with wit, intelligence, and unyielding commitment to their cause. As they continued their work, each voice wove seamlessly into the communal fabric that their project had become, a vibrant tapestry where conversation was as crucial as computation, where the human essence proved as vital as the scientific endeavor it pursued. In this spirit of unity, the quantum divide stood not as a barrier, but as a boundless frontier, waiting for those daring enough to reach beyond, with questions in their hearts and answers in their hands. Chapter 5. Shadows of Doubt. The dimly lit pub was alive with the gentle clatter of cutlery and the low murmur of conversation, background noise that almost drowned out the undercurrents of anxiety among Elena, Amir, Windy Jean, and Tim. Gathered once more at their corner booth, the four found a conspicuous safety and transparency, their whispers seizing a gravity unbefitting the cozy surroundings. "Tim, what do you make of the latest interference? Those signals can't be random accidents," Elena began, her voice hushed but insistent, cutting through the familiar comfort of the pub. Tim leaned back slightly, rolling his glass between his hands as he spoke in his usual deliberate manner. "They're not random. At first glance, they seemed like external noise, but they're too consistent. Someone or something is intentionally probing our systems." Amir frowned, casting a wary glance around the room as if expecting to see a Consortium agent lurking nearby. "The Consortium's interference is more invasive than we feared. They're not just watching anymore. They're starting to manipulate." Windy Jean, ever the optimist, despite the growing tension, interjected with determination lighting her eyes. "Then we outsmart them. We can't let fear paralyze us. There's got to be a workaround." The table fell silent for a beat, each of them sipping their drinks in contemplation until Amir's humorless chuckle broke the quiet. "Who knew our biggest adversaries would be shadowy figures with deep pockets rather than theoretical equations? Our work is a threat to their agenda," Elena pointed out, her voice a blend of defiance and frustration. "We need to determine exactly how far they're willing to go." Tim nodded, his analytical mind already considering the implications. "We could run a diagnostic to isolate the interference pattern. It's risky, but we might be able to trace it back to the Consortium." "And when we do?" Windy Jean asked, her gaze steady as she caught Elena's eye. "What's our plan once we have the proof?" Elena set her glass down with a quiet resolve. "We stand firm. We show them that we're willing to expose their intrusion if it comes to that. Transparency is our weapon." Amir clasped her shoulder, his voice rich with camaraderie. "And trust one another. That's our strength, Elena. No matter how intrusive the Consortium becomes, they can't break our team." The unity in his words was galvanizing, and Windy Jean raised her glass in response, her smile a beacon amid the charged atmosphere. "To us, may our integrity be as unyielding as our resolve." "To us," they echoed, the clinking of glasses a small yet profound reminder of their shared purpose. As the night deepened, the four scientists lost themselves in debates and strategies to fortify their research against external interference. Odin, their loyal pet and silent sentinel, settled at Elena's feet, his presence a soothing reminder of loyalty amidst encroaching uncertainty. "Seems our watchdog is content to remind us of simpler loyalties," Tim remarked, casting a fond glance at the sleeping Odin. Amir laughed softly, scratching Odin behind his ears. "Sometimes I think he's the only one really watching our backs." The conversation petered into quieter exchanges as the pub began to empty and the night stretched onwards, serenity tinged with the important work still looming ahead. "Before we head out," Elena began, her tone earnest, "we need to decide what to do if the Consortium makes a more aggressive move. We've got to be prepared." Tim met her gaze, his logic-driven mind already formulating contingencies. "We double down on data security, use proxies to obscure our research footprint, create controlled leaks to mislead them." Windy Jean added, "Plus, we need to keep building alliances within the scientific community. The wider the web of support, the harder it'll be for them to isolate or manipulate us." Amir nodded, tapping the table decisively. "Agreed. Let's ensure our voices and findings are too loud and too public to silence." Feeling a renewed sense of vigor, the quartet began to disperse, but not before Heat stepped forward to speak once more. "Remember, our work isn't just for us. It's for everyone hoping for a better, more informed world. We need to keep that in mind when the shadows press close." And with that, they left the shelter of the pub, stepping into the crisp night air with Odin padding faithfully beside them, a small but steadfast army against a tidal wave of shadows, driven by doubt but fueled by an unwavering bond. Windy Jean caught Elena's eye as they walked, her earlier resolve echoing in her final words of the night. "We're in this together, and together I bet we can outthink any Consortium's shades." As they disappeared into the night, the street lamps cast their flickering light on the cobblestones, framing the scientist's path forward, a path girded by trust, purpose, and the persisting heaviness of doubt that could only be dispelled by the freedom of discovery. Chapter 6. Convergence and Divergence. Back in the expansive lab that had become their battleground for both scientific inquiry and ethical debates, Dr. Elena Moore felt the electric charge of tension in the air. Monitors flickered like watchful eyes. Sensors hummed a monotonous tune, playing conductor to the symphony of uncertainty lingering between the cables and towering machines. Dr. Amir Patel was already at the central console, fingers lightly dancing over the holographic interface as he reviewed data with his usual precision. Tim Harrington, ever methodical, studied their latest numbers with the aid of several augmented reality overlays, while Windy Jean made her rounds with a quick, energetic precision that livened the calm before the storm. A distinct sound echoed, a soft, deliberate clearing of the throat that drew their attention to the entrance. Standing in the doorway was Dr. Sabine Richter, a figure shrouded in mystery ever since whispers of her influence began circulating. Her presence cast an unexpected shadow over the room, like a puzzle piece that had been missing all along but suddenly fit too well. "Sabine," Elena greeted, her voice carefully neutral but carrying an edge of intrigue. "We weren't expecting visitors from higher up," she added, her eyes zeroing in on Sabine's poised demeanor. Sabine's lips curved into a subtle, knowing smile, her movements fluid as she stepped further into the room. "I couldn't resist when I heard about your latest developments. I thought it time we had a conversation about your work, our shared vision, if you will." Amir crossed his arms, fixing her with a scrutinizing gaze. "Our vision? Or the Consortium's vision? We're quite steadfast in that distinction." A gentle laugh escaped Sabine's lips, a calculated sound that seemed to ripple through the tension. "Is there such a sharp divide between the two? After all, aren't we all searching for the same truth, pushing the limits of what we know?" Windy Jean, eyes bright with challenge rather than mere curiosity, stepped forward. "Seeking truth is well and good, Dr. Richter, but trampling over ethics and independence isn't something we'll compromise on." "Nor should you," Sabine acknowledged, displaying an unsettling awareness of their inner conflicts. "But tell me, where do you draw the line if that very truth demands actions beyond initial ethical boundaries?" Tim leaned back against a workstation, his gaze like that of a seasoned chess player considering his next move. "It's not just about the destination, Sabine. The journey matters. We have to maintain trust, not just among ourselves, but with the scientific community and beyond." Sabine's expression softened, her eyes reflecting an unexpected sincerity. "Trust, yes. A precious asset, but fragile. That trust is why someone like me is necessary to ensure your work reaches its full potential without external disruptions." "And yet, here you are, embodying those very disruptions," Amir retorted, his voice calm yet piercing. "Please enlighten us how your intervention aligns with respecting our autonomy." For a moment, Sabine seemed to weigh his words as carefully as one might handle a rare artifact. "Consider me a facilitator, a guide of sorts. The Consortium was never meant to constrain you, but to prevent others from doing so." Elena tilted her head, the slightest hint of a frown creasing her forehead. "Are you proposing protection or oversight, Sabine? Because all we've seen so far are the shackles, not the shield." "Both," Sabine confessed, an unexpected candor breaking through her polished exterior. "We face a tapestry of possibilities. Some will challenge your ethics, no doubt, but others will demand you be bold enough to confront them." As the silence deepened, it was clear each scientist stood on the precipice of a decision that might define their path across the quantum divide. It was a divergence in thought and intent, a convergence in shared purpose. Finally, Windy Jean, with her signature daring, echoed the sentiments hanging thick between them all. "Bridging the divide takes courage, but what good is a bridge if we forget what lies at either end?" "And what say you, Elena?" Sabine asked, the air waiting on Elena's response. "Will you see this venture through, barriers and all?" Elena's voice carried a resilient conviction that reflected the unity binding her team. We will, she began, but we'll do it on our terms. However much uncertainty lies ahead, we'll cross the quantum divide not as dictated to, but as explorers returning to the core principles of inquiry and integrity. A slight nod from Sabine, perhaps in acknowledgement or resignation, as she stepped back, merging into the lab's shadows as deftly as she had appeared. As the door closed, leaving them alone once more, Amir reached to switch off unused monitors, his actions speaking volumes about a shared resolve within. She's right about one thing, Tim noted, his tone contemplative despite the recent confrontation. The path won't be easy, but we've made our choice. Yes, and so have our principals, Elena replied, a fierce determination in her voice, reflecting what each of them felt. Amir nodded to the group, a wry smile softening his expression. To the quantum divide, to our journey beyond, and to holding our ground. As they got back to work, Terry's playful bark wove around them, a necessary reminder of the bonds they shared and the battles still to come. In the dialogues yet unwritten, their voices had carved a new path, one where convergence and divergence mingled, unfurling the tapestry of their shared mission, now inextricably interlaced with courage, integrity, and the cooperative hum of exploration.